Hi, this is the Influential Times. My name is Alistair Wheat, and I'm joined here by.
Jack Morel Paolo.
Yeah, that's better. This is the June edition, and yeah, we've been in lockdown now for a couple of months, and the time is just seems to be going by, and I'm kind of losing track of what day it is. But I think it's Wednesday, isn't it? It's Wednesday.
Yes.
Yes, good. And we're going to talk about some news that's been going on in the world of influencer marketing. It is still going on. Stuff is still happening, and people are writing about it, and we're reading about it. And so we're going to just share a few stories that we think are particularly interesting. Wanted to just kick off with a piece of research that I came across recently by a company called Linkia, and they have surveyed a bunch of marketers to ask them about how this is all affecting them. The research, there's a couple of points I thought were particularly interesting and I wanted to share with you. And that was that we all can guess that influencer marketing has been affected by the pandemic, but the research shows actually it's been affected less than other types of digital marketing. So 41% of the people surveyed said that they had to decrease their budgets for influence marketing, but that compared to 67% who had said the same for other digital marketing budgets. So we expected to see a reduction, but it seems like influence marketing as a digital marketing practice is being affected not as badly as others. The other interesting point is that 60% said that they were planning to increase or keep their budgets the same once the pandemic is over, which is encouraging that it's going to hopefully bounce back. And also that about 32% of the people said that the reason they were cutting back on influence marketing was not because of sales, which was 40%, but 32% said it was because they didn't want to appear insensitive during this time. And of those that then were carrying on doing influencer marketing, there was a high proportion of them, 63%, who said that they were using influencers to shape their messaging. And so that influencer marketing is being used more for brand messaging rather than product promotion. So even brands who are not really able to sell much are still carrying on marketing activity with influencers just to keep their brand in people's minds, so that hopefully when things come back to some kind of normality, they'll be in a better position to re-engage with the customers. So it's interesting how influence marketing's pivoted to a different type of way, a different way of engaging with key audiences, but also that it's been seems to be a little bit less affected by than other types of digital marketing. But I want to fling it back over to you now, Jack, just to tell us about an interesting bit of marketing activity you've spotted in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think in a kind of similar vein, as you mentioned there, people worrying about being insensitive or, people not quite knowing how to proceed. Something that I actually came across on LinkedIn, thanks to my connection Jared from WeComs actually there, who I remember shared this originally. But it's a kind of flow chart that someone's put together, that Contently put together, on whether or not you should include or make mention of coronavirus in your content. And I think they're making the case for, rather than kind of just including it or making reference to it automatically, for fear that people are going to think you've forgotten, is kind of trying to just be really honest about whether it is necessary to the overall purpose of what you're writing. And if it isn't, cutting it out. So I'll kind of share the link afterwards with the little flow chart that they've put together. I guess it's the way they've put it is fairly stark, but the sort of nuts and bolts of it is, if you're not reporting something that is directly related to the pandemic, if that's not what you're talking about, then you can maybe think about just taking it out. No one's going to think you've forgotten. We all know it's happening. And actually, we're probably starting to see a decent bit of fatigue now. Something that was quite jarring and that's been commented on a bit is that almost as fatigue was starting to kick in, the airwaves were kind of hit with a bunch of brands doing these kind of ads like slightly slow-mo with kind of slow piano music on them, kind of reminding us that they're still here. And they all came out at exactly the same time. It looked like everyone had exactly the same creative director, and it jarred a bit just as everyone was getting tired of it. So, people know what's going on. They can read the news. Unless it's really directly relevant, maybe it's worth thinking about taking it out. Just talk about what you've got to talk about. It's okay to not mention it on in every paragraph. So yeah, something to think about, some food for thought. I'm certainly going to try and be a bit less, try not to just bring it up on every call and every email.
Yeah, and these brands that have said that they're cutting back because they don't want to appear insensitive, I think that hopefully will start to not be such a big issue because, I mean, sadly, people are still dying, but it's not the same kind of rate that it was before. And we're trying to look at ways to kind of bring back some kind of normal life and to get businesses going again. So it might be the case that brands decide, look, we need to actually start to do stuff again, and people aren't going to look at us as being insensitive if we're just trying to, get our economy going again. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether this, if there is more research like this, whether that will still come up as a factor in people holding back on their marketing spend.
Mm.
And I had another story, kind of changing gear a bit here, about how Microsoft have just announced that they are laying off a couple dozen, I think it's 27 in total, contractors who they had from PA News, who were doing editorial stuff for MSN, and they're putting the news on the Edge browser on the MSN homepage, and they are replacing them with AI, and so they're going to use AI to pick up stories and to compile them, and potentially to rewrite them as well. And that is kind of a change that's been talked about. Other people have been doing it, but now Microsoft are actually officially swapping over from people to do that to machines. What does this have to do with influencer marketing, I hear you ask? Well, we know that influencers, especially in the sort of more the B2B kind of news media campaign space, are often engaged with by brands so that they can impact the news agenda, so they can help to make some stories be shared more, and help to shape the conversation around key stories, rather than necessarily just creating content themselves, which might be what happens in the kind of B2C world. So it'd be interesting to see how, as we switch to AI driving more and more of the news agenda and more of these news aggregation syndication sites, but the brands will start to work in a more strategic way with influencers to maybe push some of their stories to the top of those algorithms. The other thing is that one thing that we here at Analytica are working on is how we can analyze social media conversations to identify who experts are, who trusted sources are, which can hopefully help with algorithms like this one that Microsoft is doing, or in other places like that as well. So it's not about so much influencer marketing as listening to influencers who are in the know, knowledgeable, trusted, well connected, and then analyzing what they're sharing, talking about, to help pick up on what the key stories are of the day and what news maybe should be shared. So yeah, we'll let you know how we get on with our part of that research and our developments. We're also using machine learning in our algorithms. Yes, so interesting to see that this step's now come from Microsoft, and the changes will be coming in soon. So we'll see how that's what goes on the website.
I mean, a couple of years ago, Facebook got into trouble, didn't they? During the last US election, there was they had that interplay of sort of human moderation and algorithms, and people were complaining that certain types of news stories were getting deprioritized by the human intervention team. But yeah, hopefully sort of looking at what experts are sharing and is getting engagement will I guess we hope and we think that will be a kind of more useful way of getting the content curated, rather than having sort of non-expert people do it and then kind of just trying to sort of sift through data. So be interesting to see, yeah, as you say, how that plays out. So my last story is it's about KFC. They are reopening in the UK. Maybe some of our listeners have been missing a taste of the kernel, so you're in luck. They're reopening. The kind of the thing I wanted to draw attention to was the social media campaign that they ran around their reopening. So I think it's a really, really clever and well executed campaign, and it's a great example for any sort of virtual event that anyone's promoting, any sort of content that you have coming out. So what they did is, while things were closed down, all their shops were shut, the UKI social media team had this. They sort of started a hashtag, and they encouraged people to reply to their social media, which is already well known for being kind of quite punchy and fun. But they encouraged people to submit pictures of kind of the KFC they'd made at home. How are you making fried chicken in your house? Post a picture, you'll get a rating. Kind of rating type engagement plays are quite a common way to sort of get a bit of engagement on a page, but they actually ended up using those pictures in the ads. So they had all these pictures So when they sort of announced that they were reopening, the TV ad ended up having, you know, all the sort of pictures of varying qualities of chicken. I have to say, some of them look pretty diabolical. Just yeah. Chicken? I mean, there was stuff that was just like a slice of white bread with a bit of ketchup and a kind of just a breaded chicken finger or something, which looked not great. As their account was not afraid to point out. But I think just a really good example of kind of thinking about how can you engage people, make people part of the story and the content, give people something that they can submit. So, you know, asking things like, what do you want to see at the event? What do you want to hear this speaker talk about? You know, what use cases would you like covered if we're demoing this new product? Like, can you show me what industry are you in that you would like to see specifically name checked so that the content can be tailored to that? Things like that are just a really easy and simple way, rather than just going, come to my event, it'll be good. Like, of course you'd say that. Of course you think that. Give people a stake in the content, and you actually give them a reason not just to sign up, but hopefully to show up on the day, because they know that they're going to hear the influencer that they follow talk about the subject that they care about. So something to think about for everyone. We will, as usual, have one more bonus story, which was my pick this week. It will reflect my own cultural tastes. So look out for that in the official newsletter. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Keep staying safe, everyone. Hope everyone's managing to stay sane still, and at least managing, depending on what country you're in, to see a few friends and loved ones. But we will be back again in another month. So it's goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
See you next time, guys.